Tariffs and trade war. Seems like that's all we're hearing about these days. Now, whatever your views are, it's going to have a big impact on housing, real estate, and renovation industry. Now, what I'm going to do is give you some information here on how you can mitigate your costs going forward and provide options for you to support local Canadian businesses and industries. Let's get into it. Hey guys, thanks a lot for watching. This is Andy from Suite Additions. If you're new here, we're an architectural design company helping homeowners and investors create more housing and generate wealth. Over the years, we've helped over 400 clients legally convert their single-family homes to multiple units, boosting cash flow and increasing house value. Additionally, we have a VIP investor community, and if you're interested, please check it out in the link in the description below. And as always, it would really help us out if you can give us a like and subscribe to this channel. Thanks very much. Okay, tariffs. And of course, this is going to affect everyone, in particular in our industry of real estate, housing, and doing renovation work. A lot of Canadians, of course, understandably so, are very frustrated about the whole situation. You know, many are foregoing US-made products altogether to show support for Canadian businesses and industry. And, you know, we totally get that, and it's understandable. Now, you know, for us in this business of housing, renovation, and construction, this can be very challenging. You know, we're used to so many systems, components, and materials coming from the US, right? So just as an example, a lot of the heating systems, 99% of it comes from the US. So brands like Carrier, Trane, Lennox, a lot of that comes from the US. So it's not as easy as a simple substitute. So what we're going to do in this video is we will try our best to give you our take in terms of what you can do to help mitigate costs, and then also provide some options in terms of brands for specific types of system components that you can use that are based in Canada if that's what you want to do, okay? So we're not going to get political. Again, you know, this is a complex issue and everyone has their opinion on it, and all we're going to really do is try to give you some information, and based on what you want to do, have some good alternatives, right? So in terms of cost and options. All right, so with that, let's dive into the actual materials, components, and systems that we use on a day-to-day basis in housing, construction, and real estate, especially in the side of things that we do, which are a lot of the missing middle housing options, so multiplex conversions, and detached accessory units, for example, okay? And even just simple things like basement apartment conversions. Okay, so let's go down the list of products. The first thing we're gonna talk about is lumber and engineered wood, okay? So that's going to be the cornerstone of every renovation and construction project, whether you're just framing up a basement suite, or whether you're building a new small multi-unit housing, or you're building a small detached ADU. Okay, so lumber and engineered wood is going to be very important. So common US brands that we've been accustomed to include Weyerhaeuser, LP Building Solutions, and Georgia Pacific. For Canadian brands that are good alternatives, they include Canfor, West Fraser, Toco, and Nordic Structures. These are big players in dimensional lumber, OSB that's very often used for sheathing, and even mass timber products like glulam and CLT. Okay, so those are good options. The next thing is concretes and foundations. Concrete is going to be a big player in all of our projects, mostly new construction, of course. So whether it's a small scale multi-unit house or it's a detached ADU, it could be just a simple slab on grade engineered foundation, or it could be a full out basement, right? Concrete is a big component of that. So you may see names from the US such as Oldcastle and Lafarge Holcomb US. Now in Canada, you want to look at Dufferin Concrete, CBM, MCon Products, and Nudura or Logix if you're using ICFs. And even the concrete admixtures can be Canadian. So companies like King Construction and Sika Canada are right here in Canada. So the next item is we're going to get into our exterior finishes and windows. So first thing, windows and doors, whether it's a conversion or whether it's a new construction, that's going to be a big part of it. So in the US, we've been used to getting brands such as Anderson, Marvin, and Geldwin. That's very common from a lot of the big box retailers. In Canada, we have all-weather windows from Alberta, Lowen from Manitoba, Very popular in Ontario is inline fiberglass. Okay, there's North Star, Novatech, and yeah, other quality options here. So there's a lot of options in terms of windows and doors. Vinyl and siding, that might be a little bit challenging. You know, we've been accustomed to James Hardie board for fiber cement and a lot of the fireproof solutions in terms of cladding, and also a company called Certainteed. In Canada, we have K-Can, we have Mitten, Maybec. Okay, so they're made in Canada, and they're also very well suited to our climate. If you're looking for something that's high performance, there's a brand called CanExcel. So that's an engineered wood siding from BC. So that's a great alternative to fiber cement. Okay, brick and stone veneer, also common for new construction. So in the US, we've been accustomed to El Dorado stone and Boral. In Canada, we have Sholdis Designer Stone, Ariscraft, and Brampton Brick. Okay, so those are all Canadian and available across the country. Okay, next we're going to discuss insulation, walls, and interior finishes. Drywall and taping products. This one's going to be a little bit challenging. USG is very big in North America. We do have their Canadian arm here, which is CGC and Certainteed. So they both operate plants in Canada, but they are owned by USG, which is the large drywall manufacturer. Now, if you are interested in 100% Canadian, there's a company called Cabot Gypsum that you can look into. So the next item is insulation. So this is a big component in both renovations and new construction, and it can be for thermal insulation for heating and cooling, or it can be for fire and sound insulation. That's going to be common in a lot of our multi-unit conversions. So coming from the US, Owens Corning is a big brand, and Johns Manville, that's very common as well. Here in Canada, we do have good options. The good news is that Roxol, okay, it's currently called Rockwool, but it's formerly known as Roxol. We've been recommending that for years. We've been using that for many years. They have plants in Ontario and Quebec, and they offer mineral wool that is fire resistant, soundproof, and also there's a lot of mold resistant products. So again, that's a product that we've been using for many years, and we do highly recommend them. And then if you need to use rigid foam insulation for any of your projects, we have Amvic and Suprema. Next, interior doors and trim. The big one coming out of the US that we've been using often is Masonite. They're available, you know, a lot of the big box retailers. If you want the Canadian alternative, you have Metri, which is based in BC. We have Linden Doors, which produces a wide range of interior doors, you know, everything from shaker to panel to custom wood. They also supply a lot of high-end trim and molding products, okay? So that's going to be used for a lot of the custom home builds. Okay, flooring is next. You know, so there are so many flooring options, you know, that are from the US, Canada, and other parts of the world. The common US ones that we see a lot are Armstrong and Pergo. They're pretty big, but if you do want Canadian options, you don't have to look far. We have Mirage, Lausanne, Superior Flooring. They all offer engineered hardwoods made in Canada. Now, one of the floor types that we recommend a lot are luxury vinyl planks because of their durability and also because of their waterproof properties. One brand that we've used for many years is Torley's. They are also a Canadian company, but their manufacturing is overseas. If you do want a company that is 100% Canadian, there's that does luxury vinyl plank flooring is Bolio. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but they are, yeah, they're manufactured in Canada as well. Next is paint. Again, a lot of options for paint. We've used US-based Sherwin-Williams a lot. And there's also Behr, which is the Home Depot brand. But in terms of the Canadian option that is going to be best, 100% Canadian would be Home Hardware's in-house brand, which is Beauty Tone. And then we also have Cloverdale paints. So those are good alternatives. All right, so next is the mechanical stuff. And this is the part that may get a little bit tricky in terms of Canadian options. So there's plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. So let's go with plumbing first. So plumbing fixtures, Moen and Delta are sort of the two go-to brands. We've always used Moen, and we always recommended Moen because of you know, the quality of it, because of the replaceability of the part. It's very easy to replace. You know, that's going to be a little bit tougher. You know, this is one of those things where if you believe that inflation is going to be an issue, you might want to stock up on those if those are the brands that you want to stick with, right? Canadian brands include Ruby, Aquabrass, Belanger. Quite frankly, I don't know the quality of these. I'd have to look into it a little bit more. I've never used any of these brands just because from the fixture side of things, I've always pretty much just used Moen. Next are sort of some of the behind the scenes stuff like PEX, which is the plastic piping that you see everywhere, and a lot of the drain pipes, the ABS drain pipes. A lot of those actually are already made in Canada, so we're in pretty good shape there. Bulk Plumbing Group is based in Quebec, and they manufacture PEX tubes and fittings. Moving on to electrical, a lot of the wiring devices and fixtures that are used include Southwire, Square D, Kichler brands. Now in Canada, we have Northern Cable. We have Nexans Canada, which produces pretty high quality copper wiring. In terms of residential lighting systems in Canada, we have Lightline and we have Dow's Lighting. And then for some of the panels and things like that, which are going to be very common for a lot of the system upgrades for electrical, we have Eaton and we have Hammond Power Solutions that are also based in Canada, okay? And last but not least, HVAC systems. We mentioned that earlier with our example of a lot of those brands. Again, 99% of a lot of the heating and cooling systems does come from the US. So brands like Trane, Lennox, Carrier, Goodman, Amana, those brands come from the US. So those are going to be a little bit harder. And again, if you believe inflation is going to be an issue, and if you believe that those brands are going to get more expensive because of retaliatory tariffs, you may consider preemptively upgrading or purchasing some of these in advance. Now that's up to you, okay? In terms of Canadian options, we're aware of Napoleon that is actually just near us, which is in Barrie, Ontario. I know they are famous for fireplaces, but they also produce furnaces and air conditioners, okay? So you can look into that brand. Detson out of Quebec, they specialize in compact HVAC systems. So those are ideal for high efficiency homes and retrofits. And, they can be suitable for a lot of the smaller units, ADUs and things like that. Heat pumps, you can check out cold climate models from Canadian distributors of Fujitsu and Mitsubishi with local service support. Obviously, those are Japanese companies, but they do have Canadian distributors if those are the brands that you want to go with. And of course, they're very high-end brands that work very well for some of the smaller detached ADUs. Now, in addition to just individual components and materials, you may also wish to consider supporting more Canadian businesses. And a lot of people, they might be saying, hey, you know what, instead of Home Depot, I'm going to be shopping more at Rona. Now, nothing wrong with doing that. However, just realize that there's not that much of a difference between the two because Rona really was just rebranded from Lowe's. They are owned by a US private equity. Their operations and a lot of their business here is based in Canada, just like Home Depot is. So, of course, there's still going to be a lot of Canadian businesses and industries that are supported by both Rona and Home Depot. So I just want to let you know that there's not a whole lot of difference between Rona and Home Depot. Now, if you do want to support more, 100% Canadian, definitely the go-to would be Home Hardware. Those are independently owned. They're cooperatives, so every owner of each Home Hardware store has a stake in their community, in the local jobs there. And I know that they try their best to have Canadian-made products. Of course, it is very challenging these days to compete with a lot of the manufacturing processes from China. Yeah, if you do want to go, from a retail perspective, 100% Canadian, Home Hardware is probably your option. Same with Canadian Tire. They are still owned and operated in Canada, although probably 99% of their products are, made outside of Canada. And then a retailer that is kind of not, on the radar as much as Lee Valley. I shop there sometimes for very unique specific items, but they are 100% Canadian as well if you want to look into them. And then as much as possible, if you want to support your local small businesses that are hiring locally and if they do their best to source locally as well. Of course, this whole discussion is based on the whole tariff and trade war issue with the US. And depending on your beliefs, you may or may not have issues with this. You may have issues with just the US and you're okay with other parts of the world and sourcing materials there. That's totally up to you. I'm not here to say what you should or shouldn't do. But of course, there's a lot of good options from other parts of the world as well. Japan, Europe, Taiwan, China, South America. They produce a lot of products. And hopefully, this video gave you some ideas and some consideration for other options. And then also potentially to help you with some cost considerations going forward. As always, I really appreciate you watching this. Good luck going forward. If you're working on any projects, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot. To learn more about the Max Suite strategy, download our free guides at suiteeditions.com and get started. And if you enjoyed this video, here's another great one for you.